Walter. Yeah, we are, Walter. Can you hit play over there, bro? So I guess that was a good wind-up practice. Are we on? Flash? We're good? Okay. Yeah, okay. How about now, Walter? Can you hear me? Okay, we're going to start all up.
Hey, I'm going to make a suggestion. So, anyone who's not talking, just click your mute so that any other weird sounds or pops stop coming through. It's a really simple thing. You just click the mute when you're not the one talking.
Well, we're really not that stupid, but you didn't want to get on before the show so we could explain this problem to you.
Wait a minute. I'll explain.
Thank you.
So, the deal is these old dinosaur machines, these leaky vessels we got, if there's any way to cover your mic, this is very funny. The internal stereo mix over there on his end is wanky, and I would have the same machine here. So it's weird. If he hits mute, we can't hear him, but it goes through the radio. So if there's, I don't know if you can cover your mic or what, but he's sitting there in the background. But we're going to start all over and try to proceed. So I'm over here in chat. Yeah, they can hear us now. Okay, Daryl, if you'll stand by with me, I'm going to start all over again. Are you ready? Everybody
no worries.
Thumbs up. Pardon?
It works for me. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, with at least our audio, the recording is going to be better. But I don't think those sounds are picking up in the recording. But so, anyways, here I got some more incoming here. Where's it at? Okay, thank you, y'all. Now I'll go back to chat. Welcome on chat. So, welcome to No Time for Rational Thinking. This is the sixth voyage and the seventh and eighth excursions. Failed fallacies or faith fatale. So logical fallacies are used commonly. Our guest today is Daryl Becker from Voluntary Visions, where it is 8:15 in Hawaii. It is 7:15 in Denmark, where we're cycling through from, and here in the Ozarks it is 12:15. Just past high noon. So today we're going to talk about the Trivium method as opposed to classical Trivium. We're going to talk about logical fallacies and one more thing in there. I'm so lost. I got to go back to where I was to be able to get where I am. If that makes any sense. So yes, we're talking about voluntary communication. First of all, that means that we agree that we're going to, and Daryl and I will probably come closer to saying we have some outlines and we have an understanding. So what we want to do is try to share that. And like I said earlier that you didn't hear, I'm going to take this time to apologize to Cozumel for doing the non-violent communication with them. And I hope you realize that is heartfelt. And I do mean that. I consciously stepped outside of my normal means of interaction with folks. But anyways, so I'll continue. And I'm going to go back to where I was when I started, when y'all wasn't here. First of all, we're going to talk about the not the classical, but the Trivium method. It is the first of three in the seven liberal arts system. Including in that is first is grammar, the who, what, where, and when, and the logic of why. I see. Do you see why? .tv. Hey, shout out to UCY.tv. To rhetoric, and that is a practical application of wisdom. It's action. It's the how. It is an intellectual approach to communication. It is focusing the mind to do so. I will come back to more of that. I'm going to tell you something about the nonviolent communication, which I also like to say is a voluntary communication. And we're going to come back and talk about all this stuff after I intro this. And so, grammar, that's knowledge. The metaphysics and the epistemology, Knowledge is facts, information, and skills acquired through experience or education, the theoretical or practical understanding of a subject, awareness, or being familiar by that which is gained from experience of a fact or situation. Metaphysics is the branch of philosophy that deals with the first principles of things, including abstract concepts such as being, knowing, substance, cause, identity, time, and space. Epistemology is the theory of knowledge, especially with regard to its methods, validity, and scope. It is the investigation of what distinguishes justified belief from opinion. See, a belief is not necessarily, doesn't mean you're necessarily wrong, and it doesn't necessarily mean you're right. But opinions are opinions, and without using the proper application of Trivium and realizing when logical fallacies enter in, it's easily, I said my last name, Easley. It's easy to go down the wrong road, right? So, number one, I missed that. Yeah, number one is grammar, and I skipped myself over here to another page. So number two is logic, and that is understanding, and it's a removal of contradictions. And three is rhetoric, wisdom, the expression of non-contradictory knowledge. I meant to grab this rhetorical triangle, and I missed doing it to share as a photo to World Truth. But anyways, what we have there is a message or an argument. It's information, it's reasons, evidence, data, depending on if you're a Star Trek fan or not. It's a structure. When considering this, we must consider the audience, their beliefs, values, knowledge, and experience, and the communicator, and his credibility, authority, his correctness, appearance, and eloquence. Logical fallacy is an error in reasoning, and it renders a position invalid. So, nonviolent communication, some people have a problem with this, and I know you dealt with this, Daryl. We kind of got bashed a little bit, and I watched a lot of those, and I think people miss the point. It's not taking this to a religiosity, right? Just because some guy is supposedly involved with the FBI or CIA or whoever it was, Rosenberg, a student of Carl Rogers, I'm not going to go to that point. I'm using the principles like Daryl. I don't know if you ever did read that book after all, but I've never read it, of Rosenberg's. But anyways, the same year Daryl was born, in 1972, Rosenberg invented or codified this idea of nonviolent communication, and that is observations, feelings, action-oriented wants or desires, also now known as ONFR, and it's a foundation of tactical science for evaluation. And the purpose is to meet our needs without force, fraud, or coercion. The methods are observations, feelings, needs, and requests. That's the OFNR. We have this like bullseye, and I shared that on World Truth. I'll come back and pop it in chat as I turn the mic over to Daryl here in a little bit. But so out of this, we have intention, connection, choice, and freedom. And in these, we have observation and facts. These are tangible. We have feelings and emotions, and these are an internal perception. They're intangible values and desires. We have needs and values. The motivating factors, they're abstractions, they're ideas versus events. And we have request actions, and those are strategies. Whether we're seeking for that for the right now or for the future. It is a plan of action. It's words and communication. And we have the mind, and we have matter, mind over matter. And with that, we have inductive and deductive logic. The mind is subjective, the epistemology, universals without dimensions and questions. The objective matter is metaphysics, particulars. They're measurable and they have answers. And that is a science of mind over matter. Also included today, we'll be discussing the 4Ds, demands versus request, diagnoses, that unrequested diagnoses, right? Deserve-oriented language and denial of responsibility, as well as language of obligation versus language of choice. with that, I welcome Daryl Becker of Voluntary Visions to Real Liberty Media for World Truth, and shout out over there side by side to you, UCY.TV. So with that, I'm going back over here and participate in the chat with y'all fine folks. Daryl, welcome. Glad you could make it today. It is indeed an honor to have you on.
Thanks, Vincent. It was great to get on your show, and look forward to having an awesome discussion with you.
Fantastic. And we're going to have Walter on up in the second hour. So let me start with the unrequested demand that I put upon you in the chat box there when I was communicating with you. Sometimes our communication skills fails us, especially for me. I have trouble from the tip of my tongue, let alone the tips of my fingers sometimes. So I had asked that you look at this video and critique me, and I failed to fully communicate what it was I was wanting you to critique, and that was that of my non-violent communication method that I used when dealing with the unsolicited or requested interaction from Cozumel. But I kind of went in a direction that I not normally proceed with these days. I try to use the proper methods of communication so that we can have an understanding. It doesn't matter the differences we have; we can still have a logical discussion and learn from one another. So let me ask you to tell me what this is. Let's start at the back and we'll work our way to the front. So tell me about, it'll be out of order, but this unrequested diagnoses.
That's just giving labels, Vincent. That's all it is. It's just giving labels. Now, the thing about labeling things in your mind, that's great. That's how we order things. So we put everything into a category, we put everyone into a category, including ourselves. That's just the way our minds are built to do things. Now, when we verbalize that, there's the potential problems, because an unrequested diagnosis or a label is a descriptor of a very simplistic, like an adjective, basically. Like, because I have long hair, I could get the unrequested diagnosis of being a hippie. That's an example of like something to receive. Or I could give that, to someone else, like you're old. It's a very simplistic descriptor of what's going on. The problem is, of course, simplistic descriptors, they can be interpreted by other people, maybe not in a way that gives you a result that you want. They're very simplistic. It kind of takes away from the fact that there's more nuance and there's a lot more actual variables going on. So I like to translate that when I hear them. I have a translation matrix in my mind for each of the 4 Ds of disconnected communications that were codified essentially by Marshall Rosenberg. And that's one of the ones I do right there. So if I went back in order, the demands, it's simple. A demand is just a clumsy or semi-tragic way of making a request. It's a person tipping their hand. They show what they want. An unrequested diagnosis is usually simplistic, and it's a person putting labels on things or people, and that's them trying to get understanding or clarity. They want to put labels on things. That's what we do. Problem is people think that they're excellent diagnosticians by coming up with a simplistic word or a few words to describe someone. That's not really the case, and it's very simplistic. So, if you're going to do a real diagnosis, if you actually are to some degree trained to make an actual diagnosis, it's complicated, and it leads towards a treatment plan. So that's the difference right there. I try to translate what's going on, and I try to have to understand, based on the diagnosis coming at me, or, in the cases where I lose composure, where it's coming out of me, what's going on? I need to understand what's going on, basically. And usually it's very simplistic. They just want clarity and understanding. Like, who are those people over there? Why are they holding those signs? So for simplistic sake, I'd be like, okay, those are pro-life activists. that's a way of simply, describing with a couple words what's going on over there. But that's not describing who they are as people, what they do when they go home, the relationships they have in their life. It doesn't describe the fullness of who they are as people. So that's what I'm trying to emphasize with this, the second D of disconnected communication. This is a way of understanding that a person who uses these terms, who's simplistically labeling other people or other things, they just want clarity and understanding. That's all it's about, basically. I mean, there could be other motives behind their use of a simplistic adjective to describe someone. That's an example. So, does that add some clarity to you? Because I said I would move on to translate the other Ds as well.
Okay, let me stop you at that point, and let me give you the example that to bear. And again, Cosmel, I will apologize for responding as I did, and I purposely went astray. I purposely said what I said. I don't make any excuse. But that was an unrequested diagnosis on your part of me when you said I was stupid and had no idea of how many years I'd spent in study and so forth. So my apologies for calling you an asswipe, buddy. So let's talk about this, dear. I'm laughing now. I guess I'm trying to make light of it. Maybe I think it's funny. I don't know. But so when somebody shows up and it's confrontational, and the idea of non-violent communication is to be non-confrontational, realize where that person's coming from. Perhaps, and he was having a bad day. We were having coder problems. He came back to fix that and took a bunch of crap from folks. So, you know what, Cosmel, I'm honestly sorry for giving you a ration of crap, okay? I mean that honestly.
And there we go. So, yeah, that was a great apology, in my opinion. But, of course, Cosmel's the one to evaluate that apology. And an apology is another subject we might touch upon in the near future, too. But you can see how we're aiming for clarity. These are techniques. These are tools to use. That's the purpose. So if I was going to just back up a second, since you so eloquently covered the Trivium method and some of the tool set of nonviolent communication, the way I like to apply this is internally first. And then secondarily, after I've applied it internally, then I start to see what can I extrapolate about other people, what's going on with them. But I always do it in that order. First myself, get that all balanced, then the other people. Not looking at it as a communication method without looking at myself. I don't attempt communication with you, Vince, until I have balanced myself a little bit. I don't even start that until then. If you look strictly as saying, I'm going to use this as a communications method, I'm going to analyze other people, but you haven't stopped to see what's going on inside yourself, that would be a problem. Because it's like you trying to pick up heavy weights while you're lying down on the ground. You may as well stop and get up first, get into a position that's going to give you leverage. So these are tool sets that would be, in my opinion, best used to give yourself mental and emotional leverage, to give yourself a really good traction point so that you are not easily pushed over, no matter how many words come at you and what kind of words, asswipe or whatever. So is that part clear?
Well, I do have a question. If my last name being Easley, does that make me easy?
I don't think so. I mean, your last name happens to be Easley, so there it goes.
Yeah, I always do it the hard way, it seems like, all my life. So I've made an attempt to correct for a course correction, and I use this analogy that we're independent vessels on the sea, that we're out there on the waters in this exploration of discovery, and that's coincidentally V is my first name, Vincent, and E, Easley. So I have a volume in an episode, or a voyage in an excursion, and somebody said I was very enigmatic, so I wonder. Let's talk about your journey through the nonviolent communication method.
All right, a little backstory. So I started my understanding of all these tools when listening to all these important podcasts out there. There was, let's see, if I was going to go in order of the Trivium, because that's how I love to start. I started picking up the Trivium from listening to Gnostic Media over there with Jan Irvin. And he had an excellent guy named Gino Denning, who he interviewed covering that subject. And that was a really good start, just to see how to order my mind, how to order information, to put it in formation, to put the data together in such a way as to get practical results. And from there, he quickly had other people on his show, namely Brett Finot of the School Sucks podcast. And I saw Brett as definitely an innovator who was pulling together a variety of pieces of information, who was not afraid to ask important and pressing questions of many subjects. And one of the people that Brett Finot worked with is Wes Bertrand of Complete Liberty podcast. Wes Bertrand went through a lot of interesting metamorphoses amidst his productions, where he was definitely looking to see who owns what. He was definitely coming from the voluntarist perspective. You out there, with your search engine, you can Google voluntarism. That's a 6-syllable word, and it applies essentially to the practical applications of the non-aggression principle. You can look that one up too. And he went through a transformation. Wes Bertrand went through a big change when he came upon the works of Marshall Rosenberg, which, of course, includes nonviolent communication. That changed everything. So, you can literally listen into Complete Liberty podcast, and right around, I'm not exactly sure when, but it's pretty close to show, I'm not sure, maybe 80 or 100, and all of a sudden everything all shifts and changes, because now he's seeing that he's got some work to do internally. It's an inside job, as it were. So, he saw this as that, and Wes came up with using the tool of Google Hangouts over on Google Plus, kind of an alternative version of Facebook that was popping up a while ago. A way of, say, 1 to 10 people getting together and talking on video, similar to the Skype conversation I'm having with Vince right now. So there was a group that Wes Bertrand set up where he invited people to come on in and train with each other, learning nonviolent communication. And so I did that for a couple of years. I joined in this little group. I got to study it certainly on my own, and then see it in practical applications. How is it when these people apply it like that? And I pretty much, kept going on that. I also trained here on the Big Island of Hawaii. I found groups eventually that were training a version of nonviolent communication. I may as well say that everyone trains a version of nonviolent communication. There's no one thing. There are chemical things. There are people that would say that this is the right way and that's not the right way. Luckily, we're humans. We innovate. We take tools and we change them and shift them. I'm someone who does that. So I'm someone who saw, okay, I'm not going to have a very strong nonviolent communication if I don't apply the Trivium to it. I'm not going to have a very strong Trivium application if I don't have my emotions balanced with some practical and methodological system, which is what I use the OFNR and 4Ds method of nonviolent communication for. I use that internally as an inside job to balance myself. So in a nutshell, Vincent, I hope that was good. That was where I come from. I started my training about 6 years ago, and that's why I'm on your show.
Awesome. Let me ask you, if I drop into Skype here, oops, it popped up right my way when I was to post it. If you can see this is the illustration that I'm going to refer to. You probably can't see it because it's World Truth and you've not joined there. I was hoping it would show the picture. What it is the bullseye. It's a circle and a circle inside of it, and it's got a cross right through the middle. and at top is intention and bottom is choice. Connections to one side and freedom to the other, with the observable facts which is tangible. To the opposite side of feelings and emotion, the internal perception, those intangible values and desires, and our needs and values, motivating factors, abstractions, ideas versus events. And over to the other side, which is the request actions, strategies, and a plan of action, words and communication being the tools. You probably recall exactly what I'm talking about. Would you talk about that? Ruh-roh. Are you there? Did we lose you there?
Sorry about that. I could almost see the picture that you were describing, and I missed my cue. As I jump away from one window, I didn't unmute myself, so I was not able to fully take a nice big look at the picture. But yeah, it is a circle of action. That's what we were talking about. A circle of action starting from input, processing, and output, essentially.
Are you on your Facebook page?
No, I'm not on my Facebook yet. I can get there, certainly.
Okay. If you like, I can use that to bring the images to you.
Sure, please do. Yeah, I'll pull it up here on my phone and I'll be able to see it right away.
All right. There's their backer. Comes right to the top when I put D-A-R-R. R-R-R. Talk like the fire guy. That was a pretty cool, whatever GIF stands for, but if you click it, it changes. That's the four things and the two things right there. Did I post it in there? Okay. So that's not what I'm looking for. I'm going to grab a photo for you. I completely distract myself. Where you at? Come here. You don't even have a photo. Okay. And I have to go to Trivium down here to this album. So I got a ton of albums. I use albums for pretty cool stuff to hold on to stuff and be able to retrieve it. I did not. Are you kidding me? It's not there. How did I touch it? Oh, you know where I put it at? I put it over in No Time for Rational Thinking by mistake. So I'll grab that.
And where are you putting this stuff?
I'm going to put it on your wall if I find it, but I've replaced it. I was certain that I did put it in my Trivium album. Doggone it. How you like that stuff? I thought I had it all right here. I'm going to go back and see if it is not over there, and I just happened to miss it.
Oh, sorry about that.
Where are you? Wow. I have put it somewhere that I don't find it now for some reason. Maybe I just drew it. Maybe I didn't copy that one. I don't know. So, say la vie on that one.
Hey, I'll tell you a good point here.
Okay.
Something that I would highly suggest everyone do when you're having a discussion with someone is disclose the objectives. So, here, I'll give you an example. Vince, what are the objectives of our show today? Here you go. This is your chance to say what they are.
Okay. Well, to discuss for understanding a better means of communication between people that would care to communicate. That'd be the voluntary part.
Great. Now, if your objectives were to prove how you were right and I was wrong, this would have been a chance to disclose that, And then if I wanted to, I could have voluntarily signed on to that. That's essentially what a debate is. It's kind of like an eating contest.
But I don't debate.
Yeah. But I was just saying that some people do. They're seeing as it's incredibly important for some folks to understand who is correct about something. I would rather take the position of finding out what is likely to yield results that we desire and predict. What is correct rather than who is correct. I mean, it is kind of fun when you're the one who comes up with the correct answer. You're if we were to discuss 9/11 and how that event went down, I would have information based on my research, and you'd have some based on yours. And if you really, really needed your research to be the actual correct one, and I started actually poking holes in what you were saying by making a few important questions, there could be the tension that rises up, because you would suddenly understand that your objective wasn't so much to be finding out what was actually happening, but was to be the one who's got the correct answer. So that's a pretty cool thing.
That's usually the case, I find. People want to be the one that's right.
Well, you get a chance to disclose that. In other words, here on the Big Island of Hawaii, we have an expression called talk story, which means that we just get together, we talk, sometimes literally like telling a piece of our life story, which could take some serious amount of time. And that could be the objective, like we're just here to share and breathe together and talk. That could be what's going on. But if a person has other objectives behind that, or in front of it, or to the side of it, it's really a chance to disclose all of that. So we're covering communication methods, and that's one of them right there, is every time you talk with someone, you have a chance to disclose what the purposes are of your communication. And if it's really casual and the purpose of it is only just to talk story, just to compare notes and share bits of our lives, that's cool too. That's a great purpose. I think whatever the purpose is, that's one of my suggestions, is that you can take a moment to discover it for yourself. Take a moment in your head. Figure out, why are you talking with this person? Because sometimes there is that discovery process that can happen where you could say, oh, I'm here because I want to convince this person. I want to persuade them. And that is an interesting discovery. I think you can imagine what's going to happen if that's your goal and the other person is not on board with that.
Exactly. This is what I found out for myself. I started out here. I discovered the internet. I guess it had been about 2011. I guess, and so into this rabbit hole. I've crawled out of it, by the way. But I set out thinking I was going to go out and change the world, convince everybody how right I was. And through it all, I found out that it was me that was changed, and I came to, without knowing, come to start practicing many of these methods, and it came from some hard lessons too. I mean, one very, very emotional one for me, and along the way, I find I pull into port and dock up to some other vessels out there that have some cargo that I found like I would like to invest in this and trade. I think you used the analogy of being able to convey that information. If I went to Long Beach and tried to send you something over to Hawaii, I need a vessel to transport that, or else it's sitting on the dock, right?
Right. And not just a vessel, but sometimes you need an actual pathway. Like I use a bunch of analogies. I used to use it like everyone is like an island, as far as I can tell. Unless you're actually mentally completely in contact with someone else or the whole group. I don't know anyone who fits that description. So everyone is uniquely on their own. They're separate. And to get from my island to your island, Vince, I need a bridge of some sort. So I chose to use the metaphor of a bridge of empathy, meaning like that I demonstrate that I care about you, that I am respectful in ways that you can interpret as respectful, and that I am actually, having something valuable. So I want to build this bridge of empathy, this connector between my island and yours. And on that bridge, I can send 18-wheelers of logic, these big trucks that are filled with information, and there's a manifest on the trucks, so that tells the contents of the trucks, so you can take off of the truck whatever you want. So you've taken off a great deal of the information that I've been delivering over these several years. As you gave an excellent intro for me, I really appreciate that. And that's an example of some of what's going on.
Yeah, that's awesome. I I found that it's a waste of energy to go over and try to convert anybody to any way of thinking. And nobody can change it. Somebody else. The change that occurs if you're doing it right, it's yourself that's changed. I try to use this being, I don't know what you'd call it, cute, snarky, witty, or what, but in my analogy of the volume in the episodes of being voyages is in excursions and then titling. So the first episode was Ahoy, B, number 2, and on down the line, A, B, C, D, and we're up to F, and this is the episodes 7 and 8. It would be 9 and 10, but I was going to skip today anyway, so it would still be 7 and 8. So today I called it failed, and boy, I kick these around a lot because I want to use the F, an F word for the 6th letter, and the 7th will be G. But so failed, fallacies, faith fatale. Trying to be cute. Now I was trying to work in so many different words, and this has been the hardest one for me yet. Fatigue. Now I found that what my breakdown was empathy fatigue. For myself, it's like, I'm getting tired, and then I'm going to give you an example between the nonviolent communication or the voluntary communication. That let me put it like this: if I have a fence around my backyard and I got a swimming pool, and somebody climbs my fence and goes and swims in my pool and pisses in it, I'm not going to like it. You were not invited, okay? So I'm going to tell you go piss up a rope somewhere else. And I'm not sure that I'm wrong in saying that. Perhaps I should say it a little differently, where it's like telling somebody to go to hell and they look forward to the trip. You've heard that said. So as far as dealing with uninvited, let me get back here. Let me look at that. The unrequested diagnoses, or the in this deserve-oriented language where somebody would say, they have the right to do as they will. They come over and climb your fence and tell you something as far as a difference of, being on the street out there. If I say, hey, come on in. No F words, Grammy. I didn't say it. I did say the F word. A bunch of F words, didn't I? None of them 4-lettered, though, I don't think.
None of those, no. So, if I hear you correct, Vince, I got it like that. You're speaking about boundaries.
Yes.
Boundaries are what makes conflict not exist, in my opinion. From my research so far, if you have boundaries mutually known and mutually respected, there is no conflict. So, having good fences makes good neighbors is where that comes from. So we have fences metaphorically, not just physically. We have property metaphorically, not just physically. That includes our attention span. So, when people are talking to us and we're having emotional reactions inside of us, if we take the moment to understand that we own that's part of ourselves, that's not them, basically, then we have a chance to say, oh, so what are you getting so offended about? Well, there might be a good reason for why that's happening, but it has to do with yourself, not necessarily with the other person or their words as much, because that's about the tool that I'm describing in the first place. I'm like saying, would you like to put it all on someone else, that it's someone else's responsibility, that that's what's happening in you? Or would you like to actually own your own internal terrain, mentally and emotionally? Meaning like that you have it up right there. At a certain point, of course, you can say, you own your attention span, so how much of this stuff do you want to listen to if you're getting words that you don't want to hear? Well, there's the point where you get to draw your boundaries. You're going to say, at a certain point, I don't want to keep hearing this. I want to hear something else. And at a certain point, I'm done talking with you, Vince. This Skype call is over. Like, you get the chance to draw your boundaries. I'm not doing that right now, but I'm just giving an example that we have power if we take it. If we can understand that we own ourselves to start with, that we also own our mind and our thoughts. And that part is by and large understood. But then to go one step further, that we actually own our own feelings and emotional terrain. That's abstract. You can't measure feelings. You can feel the results of them because they show up physiologically. They make tension in our bodies and muscles, various places and things. They create either good, happy, fluid feelings or tense and restricted feelings, essentially, in our actual body, why we call them feelings in the first place. But they're abstract. There's no real tool to measure them. So if we take a moment to really understand that we have a choice to own our own self and our emotions, we have a chance to also see how are we doing with that? How are we doing with our boundaries? I've made many mistakes with my boundaries over these years. And I'm a novice to these skill sets too, Vince, I mean, just because I happen to be having looked at them this way and that way and inside and out and taken them apart over these last several years, it's only these last several years. Now, like, say with my practice of medicine, I'm a licensed acupuncturist. I'm a holistic healthcare practitioner. I work for people's healthcare, and I've been doing that for more than 17 years, professionally. So, in that span of time, I have even more time where I've had time to break things down and build them back up and use them this way and that way and see failure and learn from it. And in more years, it really, really helps. So, just to get back to it, if you want to have no conflict, first understand what boundaries are going on. And if you do see that conflict has happened, try to find the ownership. So I'll throw it back to you, Vince. Give me an example of conflict that happened that you'd like to expose on the show, and I can show you what the boundaries were.
I would just have to go ahead and use that same example of, well, first of all, I may be an idiot, and I'll be the first to admit that in many, many aspects of life. Obviously, I'm sitting here smoking a cigarette. You got to be an idiot knowing how bad it is, right? And I think there is a time when we can, we have these boundaries, but we can move the fence, right? Let's say I had a corner lot, and people have been, instead of going all the way to the corner and turning to the right to go down the street, there's a trail through my yard, cuts through there, and it's been used for a long, long time. It's not a trespass to cut across that yard because it's accepted that people have been doing it and it's been allowed. And now, if you went around to the backyard and there's a privacy fence blocking my pool, and say I want to lay out there naked in the sun, and somebody climbs up and wants to look over the fence, then they're obviously violating that boundary. Now, if I took and put a fence up in the front yard and cut that trail off, if somebody tore the fence down, they're violating a boundary, right?
Right, that's a good example. And it goes further than that, of course, because, here you're talking about actual physical, tangible places, and we've got, at this point, years and years of convention that we've been conditioned to understand who owns what as far as physical things goes. That's easy for most people. Most people understand, now I'm respecting a person's boundaries. And most people understand, now I'm transgressing a person's boundaries. Now I'm going into, that's usually some degree of trespass or thievery to some degree. Like now I'm crossing over. The problem comes down to, when you're having some type of political discussion with someone who does not respect boundaries in the same way as we do. For example, if they think that just because we earned a bunch of money doing work that we happened to get paid for, that they are entitled to some of that money. That they, just because we happen to live within a certain geographic region, that it's okay for someone to come and take some of that money. So there's a boundary problem right there. See, I think that I would rather live in such a way as I only trade my goods and services and my money for things that I want voluntarily. And some people think that just simply existing within a geographic region is similar to signing a contract saying, now someone is going to come and take some of what I have for the common good or for some type of excused reason. and I'm not going to go ahead and agree with that, though I do understand that I live in this world where lots of people are already operating under that system, where they have an entitlement attitude, and that goes into the third D of disconnected communication, deserve-oriented language, which also is deserve-oriented thinking. You know, it's a way of saying, I deserve free health care. I deserve a basic minimum income. You know, I don't even want to have to go to work. You know what, Vince? I'm done with being a healthcare practitioner. I'm just going to stay right here and sit and collect my basic minimum income every month. You know, I'm going to collect, food stamps. I'm going to collect everything. I deserve it. I deserve protection by other people. I deserve all of these things. Now, I can translate that in my head. I take the pressure off, because you can imagine the imposition it is if I said, Vince, I deserve a portion of what you earn in your work over there. You know, like, that's like, you'd be like, well, hold on there, Daryl. Well, why are you taking what's mine when you can just easily get your own? You know, that doesn't make any sense. And what I see behind that deserve-oriented way of thinking, which does include punishments and rewards, is I see a person has a desire for ease and efficiency. It's so much easier if someone else does the work for you. It's so much easier if someone else is just going to take care of you. It's kind of a damaged infantile way of thinking, unfortunately. But it's very, very common for many people, because if they were damaged, if they were given the message that they deserve things in case of, receiving help, then they're going to continue to perpetuate, in other words, it's the logical fallacy of they will have the conclusion and they will cherry pick evidence to support that conclusion. That's where, why I would point to the Trivium method first, and then, NVC skills second. So, it is, besides ease and efficiency, there's also a desire for continuity, that type of dishing out to other people what they received themselves, whether punishments or rewards. Being, as an example, rewarded by following the rules, so then therefore you can collect your welfare, you can collect your food stamps, etc., or your free health care, so-called free, paid for by other people. You followed the rules and that type of thing. Didn't follow the rules, did not pay your taxes, now punishments, that type of thing. So there's a continuity that they want to see the same thing happen to other people as what happened to themselves or others. And, there's a sense of equality and justice that they're looking for. Now, I would say that those ideals are of course, misplaced, because it disrespects boundaries. And that's, of course, a tragedy right there. All you have to do to make conflict is disrespect someone's boundaries. That's all you have to do. Now, it's easy when it's a tangible thing, relatively speaking, because then ownership can be discovered. It's a lot more tricky to understand ownership when it comes to feelings. Like when you guys were having a dispute that was just words, see, that's different. So, if you can bring up an example of a dispute with just words, Vince, that's the one that I would love to touch on too, because that's where it gets a little trickier, right?
Okay. First of all, you said Easley again.
I said Easley.
Other than the one that I've mentioned already, I can't call one to hand real quick, because I generally I avoid confrontation. I've rode hard and stayed out in the wet most of my life, and I've come to the conclusion that I'll not impose nor be imposed upon, and that's my philosophy for life, and I come to that through these ideas that we're discussing here, unbeknownst that they were already outlined and defined. I'd like to suggest that the idea that you were talking about, as far as the deserving of health care, why should you complain about paying your taxes? Because after all, somebody's got to build the roads. Now, when one says this, it is completely bypassed the old Trivium method. You've come to this conclusion, and you're trying to say that this is how it is, and we've started out. First of all, we're not even speaking the same language. We don't have the same grammar, and we're not. We've even bypassing the same discussion to be able to come to the point where we can say, this is why it is, without all the facts, and that's what's prevalent, I think, in the today with it, and probably has been for a very long time, and the very purpose why I asked you on to discuss this with me is I'm not doing what I'm doing for anybody but myself. So you can call me greedy or whatever. I've already figured out a very long time ago what I do doesn't matter except for to myself. So this journey is for myself. I was born alone and will die alone. So in the meantime, on my journey, in my interactions, I will choose to involve myself or not to involve myself, and I will not be put upon. If I don't desire your interaction, I will ask you to step off. And sometimes, a physical self-defense is a defense is not only physical, but I guess it could be other than physical, and should be. But I do think that if somebody attacks you physically, then you have to protect yourself. And so mentally, I think this is the objective for myself, is to better equip myself and to take on stores as I come to your island and load up some of those goods that you got.
Right. So if you're invited onto my island, in this case you are, you're invited to come on over and check out what I've got. But what I have to deliver to you is voluntary. What I'm personally delivering, and that's what you get to see. There's stuff that you don't get to hear about and stuff that you don't get to see. That's private. But right now, I've got a whole bunch that's plenty interesting enough that is available to you. And that's the way I prefer to make my communication going on, There are words that you could say, Vince, that that would inspire me in me. Like, I would notice, like, if you said certain words, I would have certain emotional feelings. And the trick is, of course, that I'm seeing that I am causing those feelings in me based on my interpretation of those words. That's the trick right there, is I can actually understand that. Now, I could see whether or not you're desiring to inspire certain feelings in me. Whether if you're, for example, if you're calling me names, and if I could see if you're desiring to inspire frustration or fear, even, I could see if you're what you're trying to do. So I can see, like, someone's words and actions are them tipping their hand. They're tipping their poker hand, and then they're showing their cards a little bit to me by showing me what their objectives are, what their motives are. And as soon as that happens, that's where I take a moment to stop and understand two things. What's going on in me, and how do I get back to equilibrium or balance? And what's going on in them, and what are their motives? What are they after? That very important question I asked her, what are their objectives? Are they aware of their objectives or not? It's kind of an assumption that people would make, as if other people are aware of their own objectives. A lot of people are just kind of bumbling around, having objectives that are pulling them this way and that, but not even aware of it, right? So this is a chance like that. I mean, if I took both of us back to those 70s when we were both captives in public school, were you a captive there?
Yeah, but I think I was, I don't know, maybe smart enough to get out early.
Well, good. I mean, excellent. And I wasn't. I went all the way through and tried my best to some degree until basically close to junior high, where I discovered that advanced placement classes are a lot of stress and work that I didn't need to do. I proved that I had cleverness and intelligence, and then I no longer needed to prove that to anyone. I after that. I didn't see the practical applications of it, unfortunately. But I was captive there. So were you. And while we were captive there, we had people posing as teachers. They were teachers. They were paid as teachers. And I said posing as teachers because they were just sort of following the same steps that other people were following. And they were saying things. And there was an implicit and sometimes explicit demand that we pay attention, that we quickly be able to reiterate any of the key points that they're saying, that we demonstrate that we're actually actively listening. Here and there, we're required to do that. We were listening to things that we didn't want to listen to. We were paying attention to things we didn't want to pay attention to. We were paying attention to a whole variety of other things going on amongst the students around us, who are almost our age exactly. So in that disempowered situation, we didn't have a clear division of boundaries and ownership going on. We didn't have respect of our own volition and power. So that's pretty much it right there. I'm trying to point out that in that disempowered moment of our lives, we were sitting there taking in the messages unconsciously that to conform and to think of the greater good of the powerful people who are in control of us is going to yield us predicted and desired results. There were messages behind that of sitting in that disempowered situation. And of course, many free-thinking people, that didn't go down very well with us. So we basically came to look into other pieces of information. We came to see, oh my God, there's a lot more than that out there. And so the reason I'm bringing all this up is that we have a chance right now to understand that we relive that trauma of being disempowered students, disempowered children with parents who were using their power over us, or situations where we were disempowered. Those situations of the past can creep into a present moment whenever someone calls us a name, whenever someone is demanding our attention, and we engage with them past our decision point of not really wanting to continue with that. And that's the point where we can lose composure and balance. So I'm bringing that up for that reason. We have a chance to understand what's going on in ourselves at any point. We have a chance to make a new path. So I don't know if you caught the relevance of what I was going on about there, but I'm sure I can elaborate.
Okay. First of all, I need to ask you if you know who Zachary Quinto is.
Yeah, the actor. He played Spock on Star Trek and the new ones, and he also played a character named Skylar in the series Heroes.
Oh, well, I did not know that, but the trivia question in Real Liberty Media chat was who your voice reminded them of, and he gave the answer of Zachary Quinto.
Oh, no way.
Illogical.
I really don't think he plays, you mean the Spock voice. He's a really good actor. I mean, that's some skill to pull that off. So, I desire to be an actor, but I would doubt that I'm going to hit that caliber. That's like range. That dude has range, to play this part, to play that part. He can do a lot, But yeah, I'm glad to know that some people like the timbre of my voice. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
I'm trying to add Walter and Solvinur Event, and I don't think I'm having the ability to do that from this end. Flash. Nope, he keeps falling off. Wait, there he comes back. Here he comes, I think. It's a ringy-dingy.
Yeah, I see him. He's got his icon is, by the way, for listeners out there, Walter over at Solvinur he's got a interesting icon of, looks like the dustification of one of the Twin Towers that's coming down and turning into dust,
Yeah, that's a big, long discussion right there.
Isn't it, though?
Something so obvious. How something to be so obvious cannot be seen is beyond me. Did we get Walter in? Yes. Hey, there he is. Okay, good. Thank you, Flash. He is on. Okay. So, everybody, this is Solvinur Walter from Holland. He does Solvinur Event Saturdays, UCY.TV. One of my teachers as well. And Daryl, he was quite surprised when I said, hey, Daryl asked if you was going to be coming into the call, and he says, really? He knows of me? Huh?
Yes, I do, Walter. It's great to see your icon over there.
Hey, Daryl, how you doing, buddy?
I am doing great. I really enjoyed your shows with Christopher Stefanik, by the way.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I did some little more research, and I came across your name, I believe, earlier via Tragedy and Hope. But I didn't look into your sites or that of Christopher, only after the interview. Yeah, so sorry?
Sorry, Walter. I can't say his name, not even his first name. Chris Stefanik. And Daryl is at voluntary-visions.com. And Chris is, oh my word, Choice Conversations is his site. So let me let you guys talk for a little bit, and I'm going to unplug and step out for just a moment and hand y'all the conversation.
All right. Yeah, Daryl, the icon there is two exploding towers, and I thought I'd use that one. I also use it in other places, because I think that should never be forgotten. It just made such a huge impact on my life. And I'm in the Netherlands, so, you think, well, he's not even American, why would he care, But it was like an experience from that day on, so to speak,
Yeah, I agree with you, and it was a big wake-up call for myself as well. And, yeah, I think it was incredibly a pivotal moment, but not just that, I actually researched the subject several times in the past, 15 years now, 14 years. Several times I've revisited and I re-audit and look at new information. So it's a fascinating discussion topic. To me, it's all about critical thinking. And it exposes to what degree, to what level of skill does a person have critical thinking skills.
Well, yeah, but I never heard of the Trivium or a critical thinking method on that day. But I did have an education in steel, so I knew that what was going on was impossible. I saw the contradiction right away, so to speak. Right, and then later I found out that the Trivium, as it has been presented to us, and I might come back to that later, by the way, about the presentation, it seems to me that that's actually how the mind works. You take in information, you remove the contradiction, and use whatever you end up with. And that's how, it seems to me, how our mind works. Would you agree?
Yeah. That's mostly how we're born to use information. That's how I see little children. I mean, I am a father. I've seen my daughter grow up, and I can definitely conclude that this seems to be a built-in methodology in just about every single child, and most mammals that I can even tell, most birds and other, almost every life form that I could find, they take in their surroundings. They have a way of understanding generalities, like that if it happened then with this thing, it might happen now with the same or similar thing.
Yeah.
And then they try to understand the pattern of action, the interreaction between parts. That's logic, basically.
Yeah.
And they try to use that to make a practical decision that yields them a predicted and desired result. And every single organism I see does that.
Yeah, and so I got a little bit suspicious about all of this a couple of days ago when I heard a interview with Richard Grove and Kevin Cole. Have you ever heard of Kevin Cole?
Oh, yeah, I speak with Kevin a bit here and there. I actually mostly typing so far, but yes.
Yeah, and you mentioned that the 7 liberal arts were actually not 7, but maybe 9 or 10 or 11, and I was like, huh? And
yes.
Yeah, and he also mentioned a guy named Buchanan. Do I have it in the brain here? Let's see. Scott Buchanan. Yeah, he seems to be the one that introduced it to Western world. But he's a Rhodes Scholar. And so, I got to be a bit suspicious, and I need to do a little bit more research. But I'm suspicious of the fact that some things might have been left out, that, it's not 7 liberal arts, there's more. And so if we are not given the full version, then, we might be steered into a direction that we're unaware of because of the lack of information.
Right, and this is why I value Kevin Cole's research. He is as far as I know, he is the one who's looked further into the Trivium, the history of the Trivium and the Trivium method, further than anyone else that I can point to.
Yeah.
So it was true that from his research, and I can conclude, having audited some of it, that there are, it was artificial to truncate the liberal arts down to just 7. It was meaning that there were many, many other sciences and methods being looked at and explored at that time. The thing is that I wanted to point out is that it's a very simple, basic, way of looking at several different arts all at once. Just to put it down to 7 is like, okay, that's a good beginning part for like a new student. It also, you can fit it into that, kind of like a mnemonic by putting them amongst the parts of the Pythagorean triangle, which is what was done for a long time, Now I understand that is artificially like shrinking it down to like as if that's all there is. But no, it's just a beginning point. It's just a way of memorization. That to me, it was just it's simplistic, but it gets the job done when I'm introducing these topics to certain people who have never heard of this before. I mostly am focused on the Trivium method. I like the tools. I like parts of them, and I like to put them together in a symphony.
Yeah. In the first hour, I also heard the word metaphysics fall and epistemology, and I found that there is a link between the Trivium and the first 3 branches of philosophy. I think that grammar is like metaphysics, and the logic is like epistemology, and rhetoric is like ethics. Did you agree?
There is a similarity to that.
That's interesting.
I think we're looking for understanding how, what's the methodology being applied, basically. So when people, it's one of those statements that I've made here and there, when people say, I'm a critical thinker, then that's the point where I usually am asking them the question, so what's your critical thinking methodology that you're running? And the objectivists do have that, where they can, people who take the moniker of objectivists, they can say, I'm using objectivist philosophical methods. I am specifically going about, understanding the metaphysics. I'm trying to understand how I know things or how things are known, which is epistemology. And then I'm going about trying to put a practical application on that with ethics and aesthetics. And that's a good beginning point. I think that it is a little bit complicated when you can have a conclusion that that's the only method to be used. Or if there is, for example, you're making a conclusion and then you're just finding evidence to support your conclusion. And instantly that makes a warning flag raised. And I'm sure you could know why, huh, Walter?
Well, it seems to me that you can find things that will confirm it for you no matter what you seek. So
yeah, the term is confirmation bias.
Ah, okay.
Right. And that's something that is going to be popping up here and there, something that we're, I would say the four of us and all of you guys listening, if you've listened this far, you're probably someone who likes to question things. You like to apply a question mark at the end of sentences and remove the period as a declarative statement, turn it into a question, and then to find out, okay, so what's the who, what, where, and when of that, of whatever that is that you're looking at, and for that matter, why? Are there any contradictions? What are the interrelationship situations going on between the parts, basically? And, going a step further.
Yeah. I understand you do a radio show yourself?
I wish, but I actually am mostly a professional podcast and radio guest.
Well, working on that. Yeah, I call it a radio show also, Yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's okay. I like being a guest. I'm working on productions. I have certainly the equipment, microphone, a better mic than I'm using right now. I have recording equipment. I have some script that I've been writing for my first several episodes. I haven't launched it yet. As soon as I launch it, I'm sure I'll let you guys know about it.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds interesting. What are going to be the fields of discussion in your podcast?
Well, a lot of what we're covering today, we're covering mostly two of the three methods that I look to try to apply myself to. And I'm also going to, I'll touch upon what that third one that we haven't brought up yet is. That one is called Getting Things Done, or GTD.
Yeah.
It's an action-oriented method of organization that was invented by David Allen. And I like to apply that to the other ones that we've already covered, which is the Trivium method of critical thinking and the basics of nonviolent communication applied internally and externally. So those are some of them. And then I am also medically trained, so I'm going to be touching on med subjects as well. Yeah.
I came across that Getting Things Done on Tragedy and Hope, and I must say I didn't understand much of it. Yeah. Didn't help me at all. But must say I didn't do the diligent research. I only listened to this podcast by Richard Grove. So
it's very dense. If you're going to listen to Richard Grove expound in depth on a subject like GTD, it's going to be important to take notes.
Yeah.
I can do something different for you guys. I can do something called concise summary.
Okay.
Yeah. So to concisely summarize some of the methods of GTD, if I was going to be really concise and put it into a 3-point methodology, it would be objectives. So you have your objectives are defined to start with. What are the goals going on? And the second step is the actions that lead to the objectives. So now you're listing a whole bunch of actions that can be taken to lead to whatever it is that's desired, each of the objectives. Then you'd be also listing the resources that are needed, such as time and effort and study and information, to get to the actions that you need those resources to take the actions to get to your objectives.
Yeah.
That's a very simplistic way of looking at GTD.
And the term horizons was dropped a couple of times. What am I supposed to make of that? Are those things that you put off, or what?
The horizon is... I'm not exactly sure. I mean, we could have a glyph of the fullness of GTD, but I would say that when I was mentioning objectives, you can start off, say, on the runway, which is kind of like the horizon, where you're on ground level, and this is where you are right now. These are the things that you've achieved. Like, I'm not luckily going backwards and going back to Oriental Medical College. and I'm not going to take my board exams again, and I'm not going to retrain and reapprentice myself again. I've already gotten those things. I'm here. I'm a medical practitioner. I'm done with. I'm done with going to school for it right now. So I'm on this horizon, but I have goals that are much higher up. At 10,000 feet, 20,000 feet, 30,000 feet, etc. So I try to keep in mind where I'm at, and I also try to keep in mind where I would like to get to. Those are my aspirations and my accomplishments that I see that I desire, and I have them stacked, hopefully in an order like steps, so I don't have to make sure needing a jetpack to get all the way there. I have accomplishments that I reach for. Those things provide goals for me, and the purpose of those goals is because they add meaning and purpose to my life. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm drawing breath right now, is I have a whole bunch of things that I want to accomplish and experience.
Yeah. Flash is rather quiet, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
Anything to add?
Well, because the way the system's set up here, we couldn't get the internal speakers right. It won't. The fix is not there. So he says no. But yeah, he's taking the quiet position. Next time, I think I've got it figured out how we can do this with two computers, but they had something else going on. The one we're broadcasting through, if he mutes, we can't hear him on this end, but he broadcasts out. So, and then when he unmutes, we can hear the background noise, but the radio can't. So what I suggest is that he go to the other computer and add himself into that call there, and the other computer will be the transmitter, and just put a pillow over the mic or whatever that away. So, but he felt like we had plenty of content today, and this is Christmas Eve, and he has a little cheer of his own going. He and his wife, wonderful folks. I love them to death.
Nice. So, yeah, we've been touching on all these interesting subjects, and last, I think, before you joined us, Walter, we were covering boundaries, and that was something that I was touching on it in a tangible way with actual physical boundaries, and then of course I tried to go into the metaphysical, like that metaphorical area of boundaries, just to say that if boundaries are understood, this is something that I heard Chris Stefanik bring up on your show regarding boundaries. That's one of my additions to the methodologies that we're discussing. If you do understand who owns what boundary-wise, you can resolve any conflict if everyone can just get on the same page and actually know and respect each other's boundaries. That includes attention span. It includes that you can actually take that choice to say, I don't need to continue to engage in discussion with this person, or I wish to continue engaging, but I wish to make it more harmonious. So how are we going to engineer that in a win-win situation? There's many ways of getting that done, because to assume that there's only a couple ways is a limited way of thinking. So I'm looking to basically put out there an update to people's mental and emotional operating systems. It's an update because I see that the cause of all conflict, to me, demonstrates broken operating systems mentally and emotionally. So we already know that, say, the people who have a conclusion that, for example, jet fuel melted those steel beams, etc., because this piece of the government told me so. And so, I would know that obviously someone has, that they must be the truth, because otherwise someone would talk. Otherwise someone would talk, and so therefore now I don't have to think about it anymore. I can now disconnect thinking. That's an example. So that's a broken logical methodology. It's using a logical fallacy, the appeal to an authority, to make a decision. And then, of course, there's emotional methods of breaking harmony as well. And we were covering some of that also.
those are decisions that create borders, create boundaries. And if you think that fire can bring down 412 meters of steel in 11 seconds, then it's a tough boundary to break.
Right.
How do you start a conversation then?
I have to start at understanding what the objectives are. If a person has the objective that they need to keep that conclusion or whatever conclusions that they've held before, they need to keep those conclusions intact, and they're not willing to explore differing conclusions. They're not willing in actuality to change their conclusions. I would say religion is one of those ones where someone wants to keep their conclusions that Jesus Christ existed and is the Son of God, etc., etc. If that's the conclusion they want, then what they probably want is a sermon or a lecture, whether delivered by themselves or by someone else, that holds with those conclusions. I'm coming from a different place, meaning that I'm interested in discovering what is likely to be true, not who is likely to be true. I'm interested in finding out. I'm interested in auditing my own conclusions, is what I'm trying to say. So if people are on the same page with their objectives, meaning like that we're seeking to find out what things are likely so in this world, well, then we can have a discussion. But if they want to reconfirm, if they want to hold to their confirmation bias, then that's a different type of discussion. If we just put it out there in the beginning of the discussion, we have a chance to have harmony. But there can be confusion when you don't have that.
Yep.
Yeah, not much to say about that one, huh?
No, well, it's a clear answer, so,
Yeah, I understand. For some people, by the way, for both, just explained to you, Vince, and you, Walter, and Flash over there, I'm trying to be careful with how I speak and the choice of words that I'm making. I would hope that you guys just, if you get unclear about what I'm saying, just pop up with a question right there, because that's what I'm about.
Yeah, I get the same feeling sometimes when I do radio. It's first of all, there's the language. I'm Dutch and I have to speak in English. And then what sometimes goes constantly through my head are the terms that I'm using and the definitions that I have for them. Do they come across to my audience as I meant them to be? It's so difficult. One would even think about doing a show about only definitions. When I say this word, I mean blah blah blah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
I totally know that. I've got a good close friend over here who's also from the Netherlands, and I've seen the transition over these last 3 years of our friendship of how far English can go, and as my friend can attest to as well, he understands that there are many people who have English as their first language who are not very clear on actually defining their terms.
Yeah.
So just because English doesn't happen to be your first language does not equal, that you're at a disadvantage necessarily. What it means is that now you have 2 points of reference. As there's many interesting terms. Like I get to hear little Dutch idioms, for example, that expressions. None of them are coming to mind right now, but essentially they're methodologies of poetic ways of looking at how things are right now, and then it can instantly be seen, and translated. So it's all about vision. We're communicating with words, and like I was saying, due to traumatic events in the past, situations where our autonomy and volition was disrespected. For example, being put in school and following orders in general, whether in this or that area of our life, and being in, I would say, situations that was traumatic and damaging. It could be very mild to some people, so they don't really acknowledge it as traumatic. They just simply accept it as a consistent situation that was going on. And due to that, the critical thinking methodology, the Trivium method, was often damaged and replaced with actually using logical fallacies instead of actually trying to isolate and remove contradiction. And that's what's going on. So I'm trying to help spread an idea of you have probably experienced trauma of that nature, and you probably internalized messages that you now use as part of your decision-making process. And I would like to add an update to your damaged software operating system. Something that you can now install this, like basically you have, intellectual and emotional equilibrium methodologies installed, a firewall to now isolate not just logical fallacies and other problems in decision-making, but a way of understanding the purpose of your emotions that you're having and the purpose of emotions that other people are having. Because those are symptoms, not things to be suppressed, in my opinion. That they actually come from motives. People take action because they have a motive to do so. And in nonviolent communication methodology, those are called needs. Very unfortunate nomenclature, because people will misinterpret that term needs for other things. That's why I like to call them values and desires.
Okay, yeah. Values and desires. Yeah, the word values, of course, ties to ethics.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's an interesting thing. I called myself a philosopher long before I even went online or in a library and looked up an introduction to philosophy or even logic. And I came across the idea that these philosophers draw their ethics from the metaphysics and epistemology. I thought that was kind of strange. It does fit with the grammar, logic, rhetoric idea. You base your actions on what you understand. But I had morals, and I still do, but I don't have a clear metaphysical picture. Right? So it's not drawn from a clear understanding of what reality is, because I still don't have that. It's been the search for 51 years now. So morality is, in my opinion, a very difficult subject. Ethics is a difficult topic, and the only extreme I could come across is like a psychopath who doesn't have empathy. I wouldn't call those people moral people. Right? So I think that empathy is, would you call that a feeling?
No, I think empathy is an event.
Yeah.
I like to look at it that way, kind of like love. It's an event. It's abstract, basically.
Yeah.
So when I try to get precise with my words myself. That's what I'm trying to do. So if I'm going to be more precise, in this case, it sounds like you're talking about measured levels of respect and caring. That's understandable to me, where each person gets to abstractly and individually assess the situation, say, like over there, like Vincent's hearing me talk, and if he's thinking that in some way the levels of respect of him and of you, Walter, are diminished, he's got methods to let me know about that. Because it's for him to say that it's respectful enough for him. It's for me to say it's respectful enough for me. It's for you, Walter, to say it's respectful enough for you. It's an inside job, basically. So that's if I'm going to get more precise about it, that's what I see. Labels like psychopath and to say someone does not have empathy is, to me, rather simplistic, because I think it's missing very key pieces of information. I don't know a person, ever, really. I can extrapolate a few things from their actions and choices of words, things like that, but I don't really know a person. I'm not reading their mind, so I don't really know. All I know is that people seem to take action because they have a motive, which in NVC terminology, they call them needs. I like values and desires. Those are abstract qualities. So I use those to sort of see the motive, basically. The motive for why they took a specific action. Yeah.
I got a question there, or a statement. Well, it is a question. It's got a question mark behind it. That just makes it a question all by itself. That one guy says ethical thinking is an event. Could you elaborate further?
Wait, can you say it again? I'm trying to catch it.
And I'm not sure that I quoted you right. They said ethical thinking is an event. I think, did you not say empathy or not?
Yeah, empathy.
Well, yeah. They tie together, though. In my opinion, ethics and empathy are two things that are linked.
Right. Well,
and then the question in the chat is from that one guy. Ethical thinking is an event.
I actually said empathetic thinking is an event. So it'd be good to, when we listen to the recording, we can get my words more precise.
No, you are correct. You did say empathetical, so.
Yeah. I was referring to empathy as an event.
Yeah, I'm thinking about Madeleine Albright when she's asked by this reporter about the millions of children that died in Iraq due to the policies, the sanctions, and what she thought of, if she thought that was worth it, and she said yes, absolutely. And so that kind of stunning admittance and lack of empathy is inhumane to me. So I can't say that I don't know this person just by that one admission. Am I too harsh in that, do you think?
Maybe not so much harsh, Walter, as it's simplistic. You're missing information. We don't know what guns were pointed at the head of this person behind the scenes, behind, what was that, Madeleine Albright's words. We don't understand the pressures on, for all we know, her whole family is hostage. For all we know, she's literally another agent or actor. If you guys ever watched spy movies, the James Bond movies and things like that, it glorifies that whole situation. In reality, all of those people, they are like slaves. Slaves with a gun to their head. The gun is pointed to their head, and they're saying essentially that, well, you've signed up, you're a soldier now, this is a war, and you're going to go ahead and kill those people, and you're going to go ahead and steal those things. And if you don't, we have other people who are going to go after you. Okay? So in other words, if we just make the assumption that someone like Madeleine Albright, who said those words regarding the sanctions in Iraq, if we make the assumption as if no one is pointing any guns to her head, then yes, you can say, oh yeah, she's a psychopath. She's sociopathic, psychopathic, right? That's simplistic because we don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. You don't even know what's going on behind the scenes over here. Here with me on the big island of Hawaii. You have no idea. But I can do my best to tell you.
I do. Big old colors and Pakalolo,
something like that.
Listen, let me ask you to elaborate, and before you do, I have something to say after that. But that guy, and I think that I can recognize the mind right there, and if that's who I think it is, I got a lot of respect for this man's mind. He says, empathetic thinking is a state, not an event. That's a statement, and not even an exclamation point behind that. But I would like to say, I just think it makes great sense to kill all the tourist children because they'll grow up and be tourists too. So,
tourist children?
we don't want people roaming around. Okay, so back to the state. Yeah, well, I mean, hey, extreme measures are required sometimes, right? Kill them all and let God sort them out. But is empathy in your mind, that way of thinking? How can you explain how that becomes an event as opposed to a state of mind? If I'm translating correctly there.
I think that I would often wish to use the word empathy like a noun rather than a verb. So I'd rather to say, like, to make that question, have we achieved enough empathy as far as you're concerned? And I could say also, I think we've achieved enough empathy as far as I'm concerned. I'm talking, you guys are quiet and listening. You guys are talking, I'm quiet and listening. Like that. That's a method to demonstrate that. So I have, like, in front of me my notes for other methods of demonstrating empathy. A specific methodology called active listening, right? And so that's a way to demonstrate that you actually care about a person. But to me, it's all abstract, whether it's called respect or caring or empathy. That's an abstraction. And to get to the abstraction, people use tangible, measurable events to say either it's satisfactory or it's unsatisfactory, somewhere between those two. So that's what I mean by it. I try to avoid using words that are really wobbly and floppy. I think you've hardly ever hear me even say words like empathy and liberty and government and anarchy. You don't hear me say them because they mean different things to different people, unfortunately. I like to use words precisely to describe exactly what I'm trying to convey. So if I'm wishing for greater respect, I'll say I wish for greater respect. If I wish for responsibility, an ability to respond, and I want to define that word, because the other definition in the dictionary is obligation. That's not what I'm trying to describe. So I wish to be precise with my words, but that doesn't mean everyone else wishes to be precise with their words. So I'm keeping that one in mind. That's
be the change. Be the change. Be the change.
Sure, I'm definitely yes. Be the change that you wish to see in the world. Yeah, like I said, if I want to help everyone else install an update to their mental and emotional operating systems, it's best that I install that in myself first and see how's the program running so far. So far, so good. I can tell you guys, it's running great. It's taken the pressure off a variety of situations. It doesn't mean it's perfect for me because, in reality, I still have desires and values that I am not satisfied with. I desire certain things that I don't have that maybe you guys have achieved. So that's something as a completely of an inside job, basically.
You know, let me interject for a minute. First of all, thank you, Circle Line. Onlywords.org/#empathy. This is my producer, Flash's wife. She's the brains behind this operation, so we're going to blame her for anything goes wrong. Thank you, Circle Line. She's quite an amazing person and represents that change that I've sought for myself. Then I lost track before I was going, so I hand it back to you.
Well, you know, we have a chance to redefine what our objectives are, because I don't know how much more time of the show we've got left, but we actually can take a moment here to say, you know, since you just joined us, Walter, and I already asked Vince's question, what are the objectives that you want out of the rest of the show?
Vince?
Well, we've got about 9 minutes left, and I am coming back with that link for you right there for chat. You can sign in as anonymous, or you can set your name, or you can set your permanent name. I'm the master of cap locks and uncap locks for definition of what it is I'm saying. So you'll find me as in caps WT, RLM, Vince in small letters, and UCY, because I see why. UCY.TV. Real Liberty Media for World Truth. Side by side, hand in hand. There we go. So, yeah, we're coming about 8 minutes left or so, 7, and I think we're rolling along really nice, and I've been sitting here going back and forth doing this and that and enjoying listening to y'all, and this will be something that I'll have to go back and listen to and add to my notes, because I find that by writing it down, it helps to put it back into my brain to lock it away. And I'm a piler, so I've got like categories like on Facebook pages or and albums where I pile my stuff up. So yeah, my brain's a clutter. It's all in piles, and sometimes I got to dig through to find what it is I'm looking to retrieve there. And Daryl, I've included in the link at the very bottom in the postings an invite to World Truth, and I would really like to invite you over to World Truth and let your voice be heard there. I think you will find a very receptive audience, and you'll also find those that do not apply the same methods that we're attempting to. So I know you well enough to know that won't bother you not one bit, because your interactions are voluntary.
So true. Yeah, like I said, it's very specific types of words that would push me over and get, I would say, like, that I would notice that I would push myself over upon hearing or reading certain words. At this point, the number or types of words that I can expose myself to and notice that I lose balance, that I get upset, and in some ways emotionally imbalanced in ways that don't allow me to apply the Trivium method, that make it more challenging to make action choices, you know? It's hard.
Before we run out of time, I don't even know if I want to do that. I was going to say, may I attempt to be confrontational, but I'm not even sure I want to do that. Matter of fact, I'm sure I don't. We got 6 minutes, and I'm not gonna take away from the content with something like that. And it was hypothetical anyway. So.
Yeah, well, you know, I like to think that this show, by the way, is your property. So while I'm here on your property, I'm wanting to play nice. So, you know. Well,
for me, I feel like it's a community, and I take ownership for myself, and I can't take ownership of anybody else. So we're all here voluntarily interacting, and as far as I can tell, I think we're doing a pretty good job. I spent a lot of time for this, and you may not be able to tell, or the listeners may not be able to tell, that this is something I work on for myself all the time, and I fail. I do. Sometimes I'd like to give that proverbial stupid slap to the forehead to some people, but you know, that's not going to do any good. It's just going to cause more confrontation and repel, and then there's no progression in any further interaction. So if people like to be confrontational and like to, some people like to have those pissing matches, and it all comes from our conditioning, our raisings, the social engineering that we're all products of. We're all sheeple, and we're all asleep. We all sleep the same, even if the fences divide us. They got gates, and you've got to pass the port to exit. So we don't want no black sheeps, or we don't want no brown sheeps, or whatever. We don't want no sheeps that talk like that. Everybody knows sheeps say baa, not baa. So
yeah, I was just going to say how nice it is to have a conversation with people that don't call themselves sheep, but yeah.
Well, I would think that no matter where we are, or we still are in the confines of that which has been established for us. You stop that talking like that, Flash. Shut your mouth when you're talking to me, Mister. Bob. What kind of talk is that?
Rub my nuts, talk. Get to rubbing.
Yeah. There's, there are going to be people out there who have all types of ways of talking, and I think that to understand them and their motives, that's what I'm trying to offer right there. I'm just trying to say, hey, we've got some methods. During the first part of the show, before, as part of the intro for me, Vince outlined pretty much all the methodologies, and it shows that he has done his due diligence. He's taken the time not just to listen to the shows and to read some of the material, but to rewrite them out, and then to use his mouth to actually action-oriented say them out loud again. I have them down to the point where I can pretty much give them out as a lecture without notes, for the most part. It's been that long. I've been doing enough shows that I can do that. So you guys out there, if you have a chance, if this is not just like you listening on the radio, but you actually know how to catch the podcast version or the MP3 download, you can slow it down, listen to it, write down each part of it. You have a chance to upgrade your operating system.
Daryl, how long it took me to, and it was funny, it was on 13 minutes and 13 seconds of the one I was watching you today. It took me like 2 hours to get through 13 minutes, if you can believe that. And by the way, we've got 1,312 likes at the Facebook page of UCY.TV. Hey, double 13, that's extra lucky. I'm going to run out of time. Let me say, Daryl Becker, Voluntary Visions, also on YouTube. How do we find you? The same way, or Daryl Becker on YouTube, right? For you,
yeah, same thing. I don't have a lot of YouTubes up yet because making videos not my forte, really. So, yeah, you can find my portfolio of work, voluntaryvisions.com.
Yes, and you can be found everywhere, Tragedy and Hope, many other sites. Walter, Solvinur Event, Saturdays, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, live from the Netherlands at UCY.TV. Wonderful man, a teacher that I am proud to Walter, you've been a great influence, and I really appreciate you guys. We're coming up to the end. Say goodnight, Gracie, and we'll catch you guys next time. I'm gone till the 1st. I'm not here tomorrow, so I'm taking a week out, and I'm going to catch up all these archives, and I'm going to learn some things. Thank you, Grimner. Thank you, Grammy. Thank you, Jules. Y'all rock. Thank you, Flash. Right on. I'm glad you came, and thank you, Flash. That's my co-captain right there. We're at the helm. We're piloting these old leaky vessels. We're broadcasting what matters worldwide, connecting voices, and that's what we're doing. Anyways, love and peace, y'all. Aloha nui, as they say down in the land of the Kiwis, the Maori folks down there, means big love. Peace, y'all. In the words of Miguel, the mighty SLC. Peace.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Great to talk with you guys.
Awesome. That's a wrap. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody, for listening.